The morning sky above Geneva looked normal until it didn't. At exactly 10:47 a.m. local time, the blue heavens cracked open like broken glass. A ship descended through the tear in reality itself, massive beyond human understanding. The vessel stretched 3 kilometers from end to end, made of what looked like living crystal that pulsed with inner light. Minho Park stood on the observation deck of the United Earth Defense Station, watching through reinforced windows as the alien craft settled above Lake Geneva. His coffee mug trembled in his hands, not from fear but from the low-frequency vibrations the ship produced. As Earth's chief military advisor, Minho had prepared for this moment his entire career. Now that it was here, he felt completely unprepared. "Sir, we're getting a transmission," called Lieutenant Hana Shin from the communication station. Her voice stayed steady despite the historical weight of the moment. "It's coming through on all frequencies at once." President Yuna Kim entered the command center, flanked by her security detail. She wore a simple blue suit, chosen specifically to look non-threatening to whatever beings were about to make contact. Her advisors had debated for hours about the right appearance for humanity's first meeting with aliens. In the end, she decided to dress like herself. "Put it through," Yuna said, taking her place at the central console. Around her, dozens of screens showed the alien ship from every angle. Military satellites tracked its energy signatures while scientists tried to understand how it had appeared so suddenly. The main screen flickered, then showed something that made several staff members step backward. The alien stood over 3 meters tall, its body made of the same crystalline material as its ship. Faceted surfaces caught and reflected light in patterns that hurt to look at directly. When it spoke, the words came through perfect translation devices, though the voice carried harmonics that seemed to bypass the ears and speak directly to the brain. "I am Harold Kethmar of the Galactic Dominion," the being announced. "I bring greetings and terms to the species called human." Yuna stepped forward, her diplomatic training taking over. "I am President Yuna Kim of the United Earth Assembly. We welcome this historic contact between our peoples." The crystal being's head tilted, studying her with senses humans couldn't understand. "Your welcome is noted but irrelevant. I do not come to negotiate. I come to deliver the Dominion's generous offer of protection and guidance." Dr. Ji-Hoon Lee, Earth's leading expert on theoretical alien contact, activated his recording devices. Everything about this conversation would be studied for decades. He noticed the alien's word choices immediately. Generous offer instead of terms, protection instead of alliance. The language pattern suggested a species accustomed to absolute authority. "The Galactic Dominion encompasses 12 species across 3,000 star systems," Harold Kethmar continued. "We have brought peace and prosperity to countless worlds. Now we extend this same gift to Earth." A holographic display materialized above the alien's outstretched hand. Images flowed past, showing beautiful cities under alien skies, vast farms feeding billions, and space stations that dwarfed anything humans had built. The technology on display was centuries beyond Earth's capabilities. "These are the worlds that accepted our guidance," the Herald explained. "They provide resources and labor to the Dominion in exchange for technology, protection, and peaceful governance. Their people live longer, healthier lives under our rule." Captain Soman Choi watched from her position aboard the orbital defense platform Marathon. Her small fleet of 15 ships represented humanity's entire space-based military force. Against the alien vessel below, they might as well be paper airplanes facing a hurricane. But Somin had spent her career preparing for impossible odds, and she kept her ships ready despite the obvious futility. "What exactly are you proposing?" Yuna asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. The holographic display changed, showing Earth surrounded by Dominion ships. The planet's surface was covered with the same crystal cities they had seen on other worlds. Humans worked in vast complexes under alien supervision, their faces content but somehow empty. "Earth will become a protected world under Dominion governance," Harold Kethmar stated. "Your people will be assigned work suitable to their capabilities. Your leaders will be replaced by Dominion administrators trained in efficient resource management. Your military will be disbanded, as protection will be provided by the Imperial fleet." The command center fell silent except for the hum of electronics. Everyone present understood they were witnessing either humanity's salvation or its doom. The choice between submission and extinction had been presented with crystalline clarity. Engineer Do Hyun, Yang monitored the alien ship's energy patterns from his station on Mars. The readings made no sense according to human physics, but patterns were emerging. The vessel's power source produced exotic particles that seemed to exist partially outside normal space-time. More importantly, its weapon systems operated on predictable energy frequencies. Do-hyun began running calculations, his mind already working on problems that didn't yet exist. "And if we refuse?" Yuna asked, knowing the question had to be voiced. The herald's crystalline form seemed to brighten with what might have been amusement. "Refusal is not recommended. 17 species have chosen the path of resistance. Their worlds are now empty monuments to the futility of opposing the Dominion." Another holographic display showed the aftermath of defiance. Dead worlds spinning silently around their stars, surfaces scarred by weapons that had boiled away oceans and shattered continents. Cities that had once housed billions reduced to glass and ash. The message was clear without being explicitly stated. "You have 30 standard rotations to announce your decision," Harold Kethmar concluded. "The Imperial fleet will arrive to implement your choice. Choose wisdom over pride, humans. The Dominion's patience is limited, but its mercy is infinite." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Outside, the massive crystal ship began to rise, disappearing back through the same impossible tear in space through which it had arrived. Within moments, even the hole in reality had sealed itself, leaving only blue sky and the memory of what they had witnessed. Yuna sank into her chair, the weight of an entire species' future pressing down on her shoulders. Around her, advisors and military personnel waited for orders, for some sign of how humanity would respond to the ultimatum that had just been delivered. Dr. Jihoon Lee was the first to speak. "Their technology is incredibly advanced, but I noticed something interesting. The Herald never once asked about our capabilities or intentions. They've probably studied dozens of species, and they all followed predictable patterns when faced with overwhelming force." Minho Park moved to the tactical display, his mind already shifting into military planning mode. 30 days isn't much time. If we're going to resist, we need to start preparations immediately. But I have to be honest, our conventional forces wouldn't last an hour against what we just saw. Captain Salmon Choi's voice crackled over the communication system from orbit. "Sir, we've detected massive gravitational anomalies at the edge of the solar system. Long-range sensors are picking up what looks like a fleet. It's big, really big." The room fell silent again as the implications sank in. The Dominion hadn't sent just a herald to deliver their ultimatum. They had already positioned their forces for whatever Earth's response might be. Humanity was being offered a choice, but the alternative to submission was already waiting in the darkness between worlds. Engineer Do-hyun Yang's voice joined the conversation, through an encrypted channel from Mars. "I've been analyzing the energy signatures from their ship. Their technology is advanced, but it follows rules. If we can understand those rules, maybe we can find weaknesses." Yuna looked around at her advisors, seeing determination replacing the initial shock on their faces. Humanity had always been a stubborn species, unwilling to accept easy answers when hard truths were available. The Dominion had made their offer clear, but they had also revealed something important about themselves. They ruled through overwhelming force and the threat of annihilation. "Get me a secure line to every world leader," Yuna ordered, "and patch in the colonial governors on Mars and Luna. If we're going to make this decision, humanity makes it together." As her staff rushed to establish communications, Yuna stared out at the peaceful sky above Geneva. In 30 days, that sky would either belong to Earth or to the Galactic Dominion. The choice was humanity's to make, but she already knew what that choice would be. Humans had never been very good at submission. The emergency session of the United Earth Assembly lasted 18 hours. Representatives from every nation, colony, and orbital station argued through the night about humanity's response to the Dominion ultimatum. Some demanded immediate surrender, pointing to the overwhelming alien fleet detected at the solar system's edge. Others called for resistance at any cost, even if it meant extinction. President Yoon Kim stood before the assembly as dawn broke over New York. The massive hall held 800 delegates, their faces showing the strain of an impossible decision. Outside, protesters filled the streets, some carrying signs demanding peace, others calling for defiance. The whole world watched as humanity struggled with its future. "The vote is complete," Yuna announced, her voice carrying across the silent chamber. By a margin of 63%, the United Earth Assembly rejects the Dominion's terms. Earth will not submit to alien rule. The chamber erupted in mixed reactions. Cheers from some delegates, worried murmurs from others. Everyone understood what this meant. In 29 days, humanity would face the might of an empire that had conquered 3,000 worlds. Across the solar system, military commanders received their orders. Captain Soman Choi stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching as her small fleet spread out through Earth's orbital space. Her ships were outnumbered hundreds to one, but she had trained her crews for exactly this kind of impossible mission. All stations, this is Marathon Command, she broadcast to her fleet. Operation Wildfire is now active. We know the odds. We know what we're facing. But remember what we're fighting for. Every minute we buy Earth is another minute for our people to prepare. On Mars, engineer Do Yun Yang worked frantically in the Olympus shipyards. The alien energy signatures he had analyzed revealed something important. The Dominion's weapons relied on focused energy beams and particle streams. Their defenses were designed to stop similar attacks from other advanced civilizations. But humans weren't advanced. They were primitive by galactic standards, still using crude chemical rockets and kinetic weapons. What the aliens saw as backwardness might actually be an advantage. Do-hyun began retrofitting mining equipment into weapon systems, turning asteroid processors into railguns that could fire projectiles at incredible speeds. Dr. Jinwoo Seo received emergency funding to expand his research into planetary magnetic fields. His theoretical work on controlling electromagnetic forces had been considered interesting, but impractical. Now it might be humanity's only hope of survival. He assembled a team of physicists and engineers, working around the clock to turn theory into reality. Commander Minho Park coordinated the global defense effort from the rebuilt NORAD facility in Colorado. Intelligence reports painted a grim picture. The Dominion fleet contained over 800 ships, ranging from small destroyers to massive dreadnoughts capable of cracking planets. Earth's entire military force consisted of 15 space-capable warships and a handful of orbital defense platforms. Sir, we're getting reports from our deep space monitoring stations. Lieutenant Hanashin reported from her console. The alien fleet is moving. They'll be in the outer solar system within 24 hours. Minho studied the tactical displays showing enemy ship movements. The Dominion was approaching in a standard formation, confident in their overwhelming superiority. They had no reason to expect resistance from a species they considered primitive. They're treating this like a routine occupation, he observed. That might be their first mistake. The first sign that humanity wouldn't surrender quietly came when the Dominion advance scouts reached Neptune's orbit. Admiral Vextari, commanding the Imperial fleet from his crystalline flagship, received reports that puzzled him. The humans had positioned mining ships throughout the outer system, seemingly abandoning valuable equipment. Why would they scatter their industrial assets? He wondered aloud to his tactical officer. Are they trying to hide their infrastructure? The answer came when the first wave of Dominion ships entered the asteroid belt. Explosions erupted throughout the debris field as fusion charges hidden among the rocks detonated. The mining ships hadn't been abandoned. They had been converted into massive bombs. Captain Soman Choi watched the explosions from her command ship, orbiting behind Mars. The alien fleet lost 17 ships in the first hour, caught completely off guard by weaponized asteroids. It wasn't enough to stop them, but it sent a message. Humans would not go quietly into slavery. All ships prepare for hit-and-run attacks, she ordered. Remember, we're not trying to win a stand-up fight. We're trying to make them pay for every kilometer they advance. Dr. Jinwoo Seo's magnetic field generators came online, just as the Dominion fleet reached Jupiter's orbit. Hidden throughout the solar system, these devices could manipulate electromagnetic forces on a massive scale. When alien ships passed through carefully prepared zones, intense magnetic pulses disrupted their navigation and communication systems. The first major battle occurred near Jupiter's moons. Admiral Vextari led a squadron of 50 ships against what appeared to be a small human defense force. But as his vessels closed in, space itself seemed to turn against them. Solar radiation, focused and redirected by human-built magnetic field generators, cooked alien ships in their own armor. How are they doing this? The Admiral demanded as his flagship's shields overloaded from concentrated stellar radiation. They lack the technology for such precise electromagnetic manipulation. His tactical officer, a being of pure energy housed in a containment suit, flickered with uncertainty. "Sir, they appear to be using their planet's natural magnetic field as a weapon. We have no countermeasures for such primitive techniques." That was the Dominion's second mistake. They had faced dozens of advanced civilizations with sophisticated energy weapons and defensive systems. They had never fought an enemy that used stars as artillery and treated physics itself as ammunition. Engineer Do-Yun Yang's railgun platforms proved devastatingly effective. Hidden among the orbital debris around Earth, these weapons fired solid projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. Dominion shields designed to deflect energy beams offered no protection against chunks of metal moving at relativistic velocities. The alien fleet lost another 30 ships to weapons they couldn't detect, until the projectiles were already tearing through their hulls. Admiral Vextari found himself facing an enemy that fought like no species he had ever encountered. "They're using kinetic weapons," his science officer reported with something resembling disbelief. "Solid projectiles accelerated to extreme velocities. Our defensive systems weren't designed for such archaic attack methods." On Earth, President Yoona Kim watched the battle reports with mixed emotions. Humanity was performing better than anyone had dared hope, but they were still vastly outnumbered. For every alien ship destroyed, 10 more remained. The mathematics of warfare were unforgiving, and they favored the Dominion. But something else was happening across the galaxy. Word of Earth's resistance was spreading through communication networks the Empire couldn't control. Species that had submitted to Dominion rule were learning that resistance was possible. On 3 tributary worlds, rebellions began to stir. Dr. Ji-hoon Lee monitored alien communications from his research station on Luna. The xenobiologist had cracked enough of the Dominion's language to understand their growing frustration. They had expected Earth to surrender after the first demonstration of imperial power. Instead, humanity seemed to be fighting harder with each passing day. "They're confused," he reported to the Defense Council. "Their psychology is based on hierarchy and submission. They can't understand why we keep fighting when defeat seems inevitable." Commander Minho Park smiled grimly at the report. "Then they don't understand humans very well. We're not fighting because we think we can win. We're fighting because it's who we are." The battle for Earth's solar system was far from over, but humanity had already achieved something no other species had managed. They had surprised the Galactic Dominion. They had proven that overwhelming technological superiority didn't guarantee victory against an enemy willing to use any weapon available, including the cosmos itself. Admiral Vexitari stared at the tactical displays showing his reduced fleet. In 3 days of fighting, he had lost over 100 ships to an enemy that barely qualified as spacefaring. His superiors would demand explanations he didn't have. The humans fought like the universe itself opposed imperial rule, and perhaps the Admiral thought with growing unease it did. The wreckage of Dominion ships drifted through the asteroid belt like broken monuments to imperial arrogance. Admiral Vextari stood before the main display on his flagship, watching salvage teams try to recover what remained of his advanced fleet. In 6 days of fighting, the humans had destroyed 147 Imperial vessels using weapons that shouldn't have worked. "Sir, we're receiving priority communications from the homeworld," his communications officer announced. The being's crystalline form flickering with nervous energy. "High Command is demanding a full explanation for our losses." Vextari dismissed the officer with a gesture. How could he explain that a primitive species was defeating the galaxy's most advanced military, using asteroids and magnetism? The High Command expected quick victories, not prolonged campaigns against beings who barely understood faster-than-light travel. Captain Somin Choi felt the exhaustion in her bones as she reviewed the latest battle reports. Her fleet now consisted of 8 operational ships, down from the original 15, but they had given far better than they got. The Marathon's hull bore scars from energy weapons, and her crew had been awake for 3 straight days. But morale remained surprisingly high. "Captain, we're detecting movement in the main alien fleet," reported her tactical officer. "They're splitting into 3 groups trying to approach Earth from multiple vectors." Somin studied the enemy formations on her display. The aliens were learning, adapting their tactics to counter humanity's unconventional warfare. But humans were learning too. Each engagement revealed more about Dominion technology and psychology. "Signal all ships," she ordered. "We're falling back to the Mars defense line. It's time to show them what happens when they get close to our industrial base. Engineer Do-Hyun Yang had turned the red planet into a fortress. Mining equipment converted into weapon systems covered the Martian moons. Orbital factories that once produced civilian goods now churned out kinetic projectiles and magnetic field generators. The planet's natural magnetosphere had been enhanced with human technology, creating a defensive barrier unlike anything in the galaxy. Incoming transmission from Earth Command. His assistant called out over the noise of the weapons factory. They want a status report on Project Hammer. Do-Hyun smiled as he looked at his greatest creation. Project Hammer was a mass driver built into Olympus Mons itself, capable of accelerating projectiles to 20% of light speed. The mountain had been hollowed out and filled with electromagnetic coils, turning Mars's largest volcano into the solar system's biggest gun. "Tell them Hammer is ready to fire," he replied, "and remind them that we only get one shot. After that, the aliens will know where it is." Dr. Jinwoo Seo monitored his magnetic field generators from the command center on Luna. His network of devices now covered the entire inner solar system, capable of manipulating electromagnetic forces on a scale that defied conventional physics. The alien ships used their own magnetic fields for navigation and communication, making them vulnerable to precisely the kind of interference Jinwoo could provide. "The enemy fleet is entering the Mars defense zone," reported his chief technician. "All generators are online and ready for coordinated activation." Jinwoo nodded, his fingers dancing over the control interface. Years of theoretical work were about to be put to the ultimate test. He had turned the solar system itself into a weapon, using the natural forces that governed planetary motion as tools of war. Lieutenant Hana Shin piloted her captured Dominion fighter through the debris field left by the latest battle. Her mission was simple but incredibly dangerous: plant tracking devices on alien ships to help human forces target their attacks. The small fighter was barely large enough for one person, but its alien stealth systems made it nearly invisible to Dominion sensors. "Ghost leader to base," she whispered into her radio. "I'm approaching the enemy flagship. Beginning infiltration run." Her hand steady despite the danger, Hana guided the fighter between massive alien warships. Each vessel was the size of a human city, bristling with weapons that could vaporize her tiny craft in an instant. But the aliens weren't looking for one of their own ships being used against them. Commander Minho Park watched the tactical display from his command bunker deep beneath Colorado. Red dots representing enemy ships moved steadily toward Earth, while blue dots showed the positions of human forces. The numbers still favored the aliens heavily, but the gap was closing with each engagement. "Sir, Mars Defense is reporting ready status," his aide announced. "All systems are green for Operation Sunburst." Minho nodded grimly. Sunburst was humanity's most desperate gambit yet, using the sun itself as a weapon against the alien fleet. Dr. Jinwoo Seo believed his magnetic field generators could redirect solar radiation with enough precision to damage enemy ships. The theory was sound, but they had never tested it on such a massive scale. The first alien ships reached Mars orbit at 0347 hours Earth time. Admiral Vex Tari led the assault personally, determined to end human resistance with overwhelming force. His flagship and 50 escort vessels approached the red planet in perfect formation, weapons charging for the bombardment that would break humanity's will to fight. "Sir, we're detecting unusual electromagnetic activity," his science officer reported. "The humans appear to be activating some kind of planetary defense grid." Vextari studied the readings with growing unease. The energy patterns made no sense according to Dominion physics. How could a primitive species generate electromagnetic fields powerful enough to register on his instruments from this distance? The answer came in the form of Project Hammer. Do-Hyun Yang's mountain-sized railgun fired a single projectile at the alien flagship, accelerating a tungsten rod to velocities that turned it into a relativistic weapon. The projectile tore through space faster than the aliens could react, striking Vextari's ship amidships, the Dominion flagship, protected by shields that could deflect energy weapons powerful enough to destroy planets, was torn in half by a chunk of metal fired from a converted volcano. The explosion lit up Mars orbit like a second sun, visible from Earth despite the distance. "Impossible," Vexitari gasped as his ship broke apart around him. No primitive species could possess such weapons. But humans weren't fighting like a primitive species. They were fighting like survivors who had learned to use every resource available, turning their entire solar system into a weapon against the invaders. Captain Soman Choi led the human counterattack as alien ships reeled from the loss of their flagship. Her remaining vessels struck from multiple directions, using the confusion to maximum advantage. Kinetic weapons tore through alien hulls while magnetic field disruption left enemy ships blind and helpless. "All ships, concentrate fire on the command vessels," she ordered. "Take out their leadership and the rest will falter." Dr. Jin Woo-seo activated his solar weapon as the battle reached its peak. Magnetic field generators throughout the solar system worked in coordination to focus and redirect energy from the sun itself. Concentrated solar radiation, guided by human technology, swept through the alien formation like a stellar wind of destruction. Dominion ships, designed to operate in the cold of deep space, began to overheat as solar energy cooked them from the inside. Their crystalline hulls, so beautiful in normal light, became prisons of superheated death for their crews. Lieutenant Hana Shin watched from her captured fighter as the alien fleet began to break apart. The perfect formations that had seemed so intimidating were now clusters of burning wrecks. Human forces pressed their advantage, picking off damaged ships with surgical precision. "This is Ghost Leader," she reported, unable to keep the amazement out of her voice. "The enemy fleet is in full retreat. Repeat, the aliens are running." For the first time since the crisis began, human forces had won a decisive victory. The Dominion fleet limped away from Mars with barely half their original numbers, leaving behind a debris field that would serve as a monument to their defeat. But Admiral Vextari, rescued from his destroyed flagship, knew this was far from over. He had underestimated the humans once. He would not make that mistake again. The full might of the Galactic Dominion was about to descend on this insignificant blue world, and this time there would be no mercy for the species that dared to defy imperial rule. The war for humanity's freedom had only just begun. The news traveled faster than light across the galaxy. On the remote world of Kepler 442b, factory workers looked up from their assembly lines as whispered reports spread through the crowds. Earth, a planet most had never heard of, was fighting the Galactic Dominion and winning battles. For the first time in generations, beings who had known only submission began to remember what freedom felt like. Admiral Vextari floated in the medical bay of his rescue ship, his crystalline body cracked and dim from the destruction of his flagship. Around him, the surviving officers of his fleet struggled to understand how primitive humans had defeated Imperial technology. The reports they sent to High Command would reshape Dominion strategy throughout the galaxy. "The humans fight without logic," reported his tactical officer, her energy form flickering with confusion. "They use their own star as a weapon. They turn mountains into guns. They treat the laws of physics as suggestions rather than limitations." On Earth, President Yoona Kim stood before a joint session of the world's leaders, her face showing the strain of constant crisis management. The victory at Mars had bought them time, but intelligence reports painted a terrifying picture. The Dominion was assembling the largest fleet in their history, drawing ships from across their empire to crush humanity's rebellion. "The enemy is bringing everything they have," she announced to the assembled representatives. "Over 2,000 ships, including planet-killer weapons we've never seen before. They're not taking any chances this time." Captain Soman Choi reviewed the damage reports from her surviving ships. The Mars battle had cost her 3 more vessels, leaving only 5 operational warships in humanity's entire space fleet. Against 2,000 alien ships, they might as well be throwing rocks at a hurricane. But humans had always been good at impossible odds. "Ma'am, we're receiving volunteer requests from civilian ships," reported her communications officer. "Merchant vessels, mining ships, even pleasure craft are asking to join the defense fleet." Soman studied the list of volunteers scrolling across her screen. Cargo haulers and asteroid miners wanted to fight alongside military vessels against an enemy that could vaporize them with a single shot. It was either the bravest thing she had ever seen, or the most foolish. Probably both. Engineer Do-hyun Yang worked around the clock in the ruins of his Mars facility. Project Hammer had worked perfectly, destroying the alien flagship with a single shot. But the mountain-sized railgun had also destroyed itself in the process, melting from the incredible energies involved. Now he raced to build something even more desperate. "Sir, the fusion reactors are approaching critical limits," his chief engineer warned. "If we push them any harder, we risk a complete meltdown." Do-hyun looked at the massive construction taking shape in the Martian crater. Project Solar Storm was his most ambitious creation yet, a device that could artificially trigger solar flares and direct them at enemy targets. The theory was sound, but the power requirements were enormous. They would need to drain every reactor on Mars to make it work. Dr. Jinwoo Seo received the most disturbing intelligence report of the war. The incoming Dominion fleet included ships equipped with planetary bombardment weapons, designed to crack worlds from orbit. These vessels carried enough firepower to reduce Earth to molten rock in a matter of hours. "We need a new strategy," he told the emergency council meeting via secure video link. "Our magnetic field generators won't stop planet killers. We need something bigger." His proposal was so radical that several council members thought he had suffered a mental breakdown. Jinwoo wanted to weaponize Earth's entire magnetosphere, turning the planet's natural protective field into a massive electromagnetic pulse weapon. The energy release would be visible from neighboring star systems, but it might be humanity's only chance of survival. Lieutenant Hana Shin led a desperate reconnaissance mission beyond Neptune, using captured alien technology to spy on the approaching Dominion fleet. What she found made her blood run cold. The enemy ships stretched across space like a metal ocean, their hulls bristling with weapons designed to end civilizations. "Command, this is Ghost Leader," she transmitted on the most secure channel available. "I'm looking at the largest military force in galactic history. They're not just coming to conquer us. They're coming to make an example that will keep every other species in line for 1,000 years. Hidden among the enemy ships, she planted tracking devices and gathered intelligence on their weapon systems. The planet killers were worse than anyone had imagined, capable of literally tearing worlds apart with focused gravity weapons. Earth's defenses, impressive as they were, would last minutes against such overwhelming firepower. Commander Minho Park coordinated Earth's final preparations from his command bunker. Every military installation on the planet was being converted into a fortress. Cities were being evacuated to underground shelters that might protect civilians from orbital bombardment. The planet was preparing to become a battleground. "Sir, we're getting reports from the outer colonies," his aide announced. "Luna Base is requesting permission to attempt a kamikaze run against the enemy fleet." Minho closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of command. Luna Base housed 50,000 people, mostly scientists and their families. They were volunteering to sacrifice themselves for a chance to damage the alien fleet. It was exactly the kind of gesture that made him proud to be human and horrified by the choices war demanded. Across the galaxy, the impossible was happening. On 3 different worlds, enslaved species rose in rebellion against their Dominion overseers. The Kepler uprising began in the factory districts, spreading to the agricultural zones as workers abandoned their posts. The Centauri revolt started when mining crews seized control of the orbital platforms. On distant Vega Prime, an entire city declared independence. Each rebellion was small, poorly equipped, and doomed to fail without outside support. But they were happening simultaneously, stretching Dominion forces thin just as the Empire needed every ship for the assault on Earth. Human resistance was inspiring galactic revolution. The Dominion High Command issued emergency orders to suppress the rebellions immediately. Garrison fleets that should have joined the Earth offensive were diverted to maintain control over tributary worlds. The perfect storm of imperial logistics began to work against the aliens for the first time in their history. Dr. Jinwoo Seo's magnetosphere weapon came online just as the alien fleet entered the outer solar system. Every power plant on Earth fed energy into the massive electromagnetic coils buried beneath the planet's crust. The device would either save humanity or tear the planet apart in the attempt. "All stations report ready," his chief technician announced. "Magnetosphere weaponization is at full power." The approaching Dominion fleet detected the energy buildup, but couldn't understand what they were seeing. Their sensors showed impossible readings from the 3rd planet, as if the entire world was charging up like a massive battery. Admiral Kethvar, replacement for the fallen Vextari, ordered his ships to maximum alert. "What are they doing?" he demanded of his science officer. "No species has ever attempted to weaponize an entire planetary magnetic field." Captain Soman Choi made her final speech to the combined human fleet. Military vessels and civilian volunteers formed a thin line between Earth and the approaching armada. Merchant ships loaded with fusion bombs sailed alongside destroyers equipped with kinetic weapons. It was the most desperate naval battle in human history, fought in the vacuum of space. "Today we don't fight for territory or resources," she announced to her fleet. "We fight for the right to exist as free beings. We fight for every child who should grow up under Earth's sky instead of alien rule. We fight because someone has to, and it might as well be us." The alien fleet spread across space like a plague of metal locusts, their weapons already charging for the bombardment that would end human civilization. But Earth was ready for them, armed with weapons that turned physics itself into ammunition, and defended by people who refused to kneel even in the face of extinction. The final battle for humanity's survival was about to begin. The final battle for Earth began at 0600 hours GMT on a Tuesday morning. Admiral HFY led the largest fleet in galactic history toward the blue planet. 2,000 ships carrying enough firepower to shatter continents. He expected the conquest to last mere hours. By sunset, Earth would be another broken world, serving as a warning to anyone who dared defy the Dominion. Captain Sumin Choi stood on the bridge of the Marathon, watching her tiny fleet spread out to meet the approaching armada, 57 ships in total, counting the civilian volunteers who had refused to abandon the fight. Against 2,000 alien warships, they had no chance of victory in any conventional sense. But humans had stopped fighting conventionally the moment the first alien ship appeared in Earth's sky. "All ships, this is Marathon Command," she broadcast on the open channel. "Execute Plan Phoenix. Make every shot count." The human fleet scattered like seeds on the wind, breaking formation to attack from hundreds of different angles. Merchant ships loaded with fusion bombs raced toward the largest alien vessels, while military destroyers provided covering fire. It looked like chaos to the Dominion commanders, but it was carefully orchestrated madness designed to confuse sensors and split enemy fire. Engineer Do Hyun-yang activated Project Solarstorm from his control bunker on Mars. The massive device began drawing power from every reactor on the red planet, building up energy for the most ambitious shot in human history. Through the solar system's magnetic field lines, his equipment reached out to touch the sun itself. Initiating stellar destabilization sequence, he announced to the defense network. "Solar flare will commence in T-minus 60 seconds. All ships clear the projected path." The sun, that stable furnace that had burned peacefully for billions of years, suddenly became humanity's greatest weapon. Magnetic field manipulators triggered an artificial coronal mass ejection, sending a focused stream of solar plasma racing toward the alien fleet at a significant fraction of light speed. Dr. Jinwoo Seo watched his instruments as Earth's magnetosphere began to weaponize itself. Every electromagnetic coil buried in the planet's crust worked together to build the largest directed energy pulse ever attempted. The planet itself was becoming a gun, and 2,000 alien ships were flying directly into its barrel. "Magnetosphere weapon at full charge," reported his technician. "Ready to fire on your command." Admiral HFY felt the first stirrings of unease as his fleet encountered humanity's opening moves. Small human ships appeared everywhere at once, striking with kinetic weapons and fusion bombs before vanishing back into the chaos of battle. His massive vessels could destroy any human ship with a single shot, but they couldn't hit targets that refused to fight fair. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy buildup from the third planet," his science officer reported with growing alarm. "They appear to be channeling power through their entire magnetosphere." Before the admiral could respond, Do Hyun-yang's solar weapon struck. The artificial solar flare hit the center of the Dominion formation like the fist of an angry god, vaporizing 50 ships instantly and sending electromagnetic pulses through another 100. Alien vessels tumbled helplessly as their electronics failed, leaving them vulnerable to human kinetic weapons. Lieutenant Hana Shin led the most desperate mission of her life, piloting her captured alien fighter through the chaos toward the enemy flagship. Her small ship carried the most important cargo in human space, a fusion bomb designed to penetrate Dominion shields and detonate inside the alien command vessel. "Ghost leader to all units," she transmitted as enemy fire erupted around her, beginning final approach on primary target. "If anyone's listening back home, tell them we gave them a hell of a fight." The combined human fleet struck like a swarm of angry hornets, each ship attacking independently while supporting the overall battle plan. Civilian cargo haulers rammed alien destroyers in suicide runs while military vessels used precision strikes to disable larger ships. Every human vessel was outnumbered 40-1, but they fought with the fury of people defending their only home. Dr. Jinwoo Seo fired Earth's magnetosphere weapon as the alien fleet closed to optimal range. The planet's entire magnetic field discharged in a focused electromagnetic pulse that lit up space like a second sun. The energy release was so massive it could be detected by radio telescopes in neighboring star systems. The pulse struck the Dominion fleet like an invisible tsunami. Alien ships, their electronics designed for the cold of deep space, began failing systematically as the electromagnetic storm overwhelmed their systems. Hundreds of vessels went dark, drifting helplessly as their crews struggled to restore power. Admiral Kethvar watched his perfect fleet dissolve into chaos as human weapons defied every law of civilized warfare. They were using their own star as artillery. They had turned their planet into an electromagnetic cannon. They fought like the universe itself had declared war on the Dominion. "How many ships have we lost?" he demanded, though he dreaded the answer. 400 confirmed destroyed, sir," his tactical officer replied with crystalline despair. "Another 300 are dead in space from electromagnetic damage. The humans are picking off our disabled vessels with kinetic weapons." Captain Soman Choi pressed her attack as the alien formation crumbled. Her remaining ships darted between burning wrecks targeting command vessels and ships carrying planet-killer weapons. The Marathon's hull glowed red-hot from energy weapon strikes, but her crew fought on with grim determination. "All ships concentrate fire on the planetary bombardment vessels," she ordered. "Don't let any of those monsters reach Earth." Lieutenant Hana Shin's suicide run succeeded beyond anyone's hopes. Her fusion bomb detonated inside the Dominion flagship's command center, killing Admiral Kethvar and destroying the fleet's central coordination. Without unified command, the alien ships began fighting as separate units instead of a coordinated force. But the battle was far from over. Despite massive losses, the Dominion still had over 1,000 ships remaining. They began falling back to regroup, preparing for a final assault that would overwhelm Earth's defenses through sheer numbers. Engineer Do-hyun Yang had one last weapon to deploy. Hidden throughout the asteroid belt, automated defense platforms came online for the first time. These robot guardians, built from mining equipment and armed with kinetic weapons, created a defensive barrier between the alien fleet and Earth. The Dominion fleet found itself caught in a crossfire as the automated defenses opened up from all directions. Kinetic rounds fired from hidden platforms tore through alien hulls while human ships continued their hit-and-run attacks. Space itself seemed to be fighting against the invaders. President Yoona Kim watched the battle from her command bunker, knowing that humanity's fate hung in the balance. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy as the news of Earth's resistance inspired rebellions on dozens of worlds. The empire that had ruled through fear was discovering that courage could be contagious. "Ma'am, we're receiving surrender requests from isolated alien ships," her communications officer reported. "Some of them are asking for asylum." For the first time in the war, Yoona smiled. Individual alien crews were abandoning their empire rather than fight against beings who treated stellar engineering as a weapon of war. The Dominion's greatest strength, absolute loyalty through fear, was crumbling in the face of human defiance. The surviving alien ships, reduced to fewer than 600 vessels, attempted one final assault on Earth. But they faced a planet that had weaponized its own magnetosphere, defended by people who refused to accept defeat. Human ships, many of them damaged civilian volunteers, threw themselves at the alien formation with suicidal courage. Dr. Jinwoo Seo fired the magnetosphere weapon for the second time, sending another electromagnetic pulse through the attacking fleet. Combined with kinetic weapons and the last of Do-hyun Yang's solar storms, the assault shattered the final Dominion attack. The alien fleet, broken and demoralized, began to retreat toward the outer solar system, but Captain Soman Choi wasn't finished with them. Her surviving ships pursued the fleeing aliens, harassing them all the way to the edge of human space. The impossible had happened. Earth had defeated the Galactic Dominion. As news of the victory spread across the galaxy, 18 tributary worlds declared independence. The empire that had ruled for millennia began to collapse as species after species chose freedom over submission. The beings who had demanded humanity's surrender found themselves begging for mercy from the people they had tried to enslave. President Yoona Kim stood before the United Earth Assembly once again, this time to announce humanity's terms for peace. Earth would not become a conqueror like the Dominion. Instead, they offered something the galaxy had never seen: a confederation of free worlds where no species would bow to another. The war was over, but humanity's greatest victory was just beginning. They had proven that freedom was stronger than fear, that courage could triumph over overwhelming odds, and that sometimes the best response to a demand for submission was to light the cosmos on fire.